Hello, this is Jeff Neville for Selective Imagery. Welcome to Night Photography. Here we're going to take you, on a little journey through part of Myrtle Beach. It's very common, where we have the large Ferris wheel. And it's not an astrophotography discussion. It's basically taking pictures of lit up buildings and storefronts and that type of thing at night. And we'll talk about why, even with one subject, you might take 20, 30 pictures of the same thing and why you might want to do that. So let's start with the first picture. And you can look at the caption at the bottom and see I'm using the Z9 with the 24-120 f4. I'm at ISO 200, 5 seconds. And I'm in the AFS mode, which is what you use when you're taking pictures of something that's stationary. If I was doing sports or something, and obviously probably not doing that at night, I'd be shooting in autofocus continuous mode, like when I'm shooting for birds. Now, mirrorless camera has such an advantage over a DSLR when it comes to night photography, because obviously as you change your settings, you can see the effect of your image as you change those settings, which you can't do with a DSLR. So with a DSLR, if I was using a DSLR, I would be, using my best guess as to how long a duration I want my shutter speed to be. Then obviously I could view the image after it's taken and see if I like it or don't like it and make adjustments and continue to do that. With mirrorless, I can look at it and sit there and play with my settings and pretty much nail it the first time. And if I do change the setting, it's because I'm just looking for a different effect. And when I talked about taking 20 or more pictures of the same subject, even looking at this subject, you would say, well, why would I do that? Well, in this case, I'm at 5 seconds. So if people are moving, they're blurry. Well, is the person in a place where I don't find it bothersome? Are there some people that are in focus because they're not moving? Where are those people? The Ferris wheel changes colors. It also starts to turn off the lights in sections. So you have all these variables in terms of how much light, what the light looks like, what sections are on, what sections are off, where are people in the picture. You've got a lot of combinations. Therefore, you can take a lot of images and have truly distinct images with something like this. And just like people that do portrait photography, they say, well, they love doing portraits and shooting with strobes and shooting with flashes because they control the light. You also have some control over the light when you're doing night photography. So and I'll show you some better examples of that in some other pictures. So let's move on and look at some other shots of this same subject. Now here's another shot of the same scene. Now what's different here? Well, there are a few people, or at least a person, that's walking a little bit closer to where I'm shooting. And also the lighting on the Ferris wheel is different. And you may say, well, where do you focus on something like this? Well, a couple different theories on what you should do, where you focus. One, if you're in AFS mode and it's single point, you can put the focus point where you have some decent contrast so it can focus, and you can use the autofocus mode. And as long as you don't move that focus point, when you push the shutter again to take the actual picture, it'll be fine. Now, where do you place it in the subject? Well, in the old days, or I shouldn't say too old days, a rule was, okay, if you're shooting with your lens stopped down, and f/16 is stopped down pretty far, you're not shooting wide open like at f4, I want everything in this picture to be sharp. So one approach would be you put the focus point a third of the way in on the image, and if you do that and you shoot stop down far enough, everything front to back is going to be sharp. Another theory, another method that some people use is they say, well, decide where you want the image to start being sharp, and let's say that's 20 feet away. Double that distance and focus 40 feet away. And some claim that's more accurate than doing the 1/3 rule. And I've done both methods, and I've had good results with both methods. So obviously a wide angle, shooting at a wider angle, you're going to have better depth of field anyway. But all these photos, if you zoom in on any part of this video, if you have that capability, it is tack sharp front to back. And that's exactly what I want. So here we are again. Now this is shot getting closer to the Ferris wheel. You can see Dirty Don's restaurant, and there's more people. There's people to the left, there's people to the right, and the Ferris wheel colors are a little different. So change your angle, get a little closer, or if you got a zoom lens, then zoom a little tighter. You get different results, obviously. This is far away again. There is a person much closer, which some people may find distracting and not like it. Ferris wheel is lit up considerably more than in the other shots. These next two shots are much closer to the Ferris wheel, different angle, shot from a totally different area, and with different effects of the Ferris wheel. And I like shooting with stop down because I get that little starburst effect on the street lights as well. Here are two shots showing a pier with the ocean. The boardwalk I was shooting from would be to the left, and this is zoomed in a little more, which gives you a lot more detail of the pier. And I like this shot, and it's sharp front to back. Just a note, here the shutter speed was in that 10 to 13 second range versus maybe 1.3 to 5 seconds on most of the other shots that you'll see. Here are a couple shots of Dirty Don's Oyster Bar and Grill, and you got a person on the far right, blurry. You may not like that. So eventually he stops to talk to somebody, and he's still blurry. The rest of the people are somewhat sharp. Some people may like that more. Here's a few shots of a candy store, which I really like, with a few people standing near the front. And the next picture has some light streaks from a car going by. So this is where you could take tons of pictures, and you'll see a bunch of examples coming up of light streaks of cars. And I just want to talk about focusing. You could use the autofocus mode, and as long as you don't move the autofocus point, you'd be fine. But what some people like to do is once they may acquire the focus automatically, and then just switch your lens to manual focus, and that way you don't have to worry about that focus changing at all. So that's personal preference in how you do it, or you can just do manual focus completely. That's another option. This next series of shots of this bargain beachwear is why you could take 20 images or more of the same place, because you're trying to get the colors of light and light streaks from cars. And some will take a right, go up to the road on the right. You try to get traffic going both ways. Some cars have different colored lights on them. They give you different effects. So you could stand on this one corner for a long period of time just to try to catch the light. The whiter colored lights are obviously the headlights of the car going left to right. The red lights are the tail lights of the cars going from right to left. I also want to mention one thing that I do. I am on a tripod. I'm not hand holding these shots. I have them on a tripod, and I'm using a remote shutter release. So I am not touching the camera once I have the exposure and everything set and I'm ready to go. But this is why you could take so many shots. Okay, this is the last set of images in this video. And same thing, trying to get the light trails from the cars or different images of the cars. And I want to emphasize that most of these images had very little adjustments in Lightroom, with the exception of this one, because the whiter light underneath the gift shop and going towards the Ferris wheel was a little strong, so I had to get out the paintbrush and lower the exposure and the highlights a little bit so they weren't blown out too bad. So other than that, didn't do much to these pictures at all. I also want to note I had my long exposure noise reduction feature turned on in the Z9, and as a result the pictures were perfectly clear. I didn't try any without it, but all I can say is they were clear without any noise. I didn't have to do any noise reduction at all on these images. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give me a like, subscribe, comment, and remember, enjoy life, capture some of it.